Hey, what's up everybody? R.A.D here, the beautiful Ocean Beach, Whangarei, home of my good friend Jess Kean, who I am here to have a cordial with today, to share a bit about her story, which I personally find inspiring. She would disagree with that knowing her, but it really is inspiring, and I do hope that you stick through and watch to the end. When I think of Jess, I think of resilience, I think of intelligence, and I think of being cheeky. Yeah, I got a lot from Jess throughout my life. She's a real mentor and a role model to me, and yeah, it's a real privilege for me to be able to share this video with you all today, and I hope you can get something from this.
So firstly, thank you for taking the time to catch up with me and to do this. I know this is definitely not your comfort zone, and neither it is for me. So I figured it would be just cool to hear in 2 to 5 minutes a brief overview of who you are and your life to date, and what got you to here now.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to do the interview on who I am, 2 to 5 minutes. Well, my name's Jess, of course. Who I am, I'm a mother. Is this in a professional or a personal way? Either one.
Personal. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So who I am, where I am today. So I am 49, knocking on 50. Exciting times. I think this is the best time of my life in terms of have finally developed the freedom to be me, which has been really awesome. Life is quite often about other people, so you get to a certain stage in your life when you go, actually, it's okay to be who I am, and so that's where I'm at the moment. So my kids are growing, well, as much as they can.
Still at home?
Yes, yeah, so my son's still, well, sort of officially still at home. My daughter's at university, but she comes home during holidays and stuff, so they are my be-all and end-all. As you know, I lost my husband about 7 years ago. He passed away unexpectedly. So that was a huge shift for me, and it has sort of reminded me of the importance of family, the importance of kids. So they are my be-all and end-all. Very, very different kids, poles apart, but absolutely amazing in their own right. So, yeah. So that's me, I suppose.
And career-wise, what do you do currently, or what's some of the jobs that you've done in the past?
Yeah, so career-wise, so my undergraduate degree was psychology because I was always interested in people, and then I ended up in social work. So I did social work frontline for about 20 years, and then got into education, where I was teaching social work, and that's where we met. You were one of my students many, many years ago. Still remember the 17-year-old rap star.
Not much has changed.
Yeah, exactly. Like still rapping out.
Yeah. There's a few more kids.
Yeah, a few more kids, but still rapping out. And so, yeah, work in education now, which is great. It's just working with people, and that's what I enjoy doing.
And what got you into being interested in working with people in general?
Life, excellent. I suppose I'm a bit of a believer that the universe puts us where we need to be.
Yeah.
And I think, we can have the best laid plans, but if it's not where the universe wants you to be, then you're not going to end up there. The universe will always go, no, over here. So I suppose I ended up working with people because that's probably where my mum was, and that's how I grew up. She was always involved in community development stuff, and I just sort of used to tag along back in the day where there was no such thing as daycares. You just tag along, and I just sort of went from there. So, yeah, I don't know, just where I ended up because that's where the universe wanted me to be.
Yeah. And you still enjoy it?
Yeah, it has its moments. I suppose people don't really... they don't believe me when I say I'm an introvert, and I am actually an introvert because I am quite out there when I come to working with people.
Yeah.
But then I need to come home and just be by myself because that's where I get my energy from. So I enjoy helping people. I think it's part of my purpose. I think we all have a purpose in this world, and it's very different for all of us. But the more I explore my own spirituality and my own purpose for being, I think my purpose is about other people. It's about what I can offer and do for others, and that's what I'm here to do. So whether I want to do it or not, I'm always going to end up doing that because that's what the universe has decided is my purpose. Yeah.
And you briefly touched on being in education in terms of being an educator for social work.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what got you into that. What got you into being an educator and working and teaching social work. And
I keep coming back to the universe. The universe got me there. I had no real, it's purely accidental. So I was doing social work, and then my mum actually was working in education, and then I got pregnant, had a child. Really important for both me and my husband that one of us was at home with the children. So I took the first shift, so to speak, and I stayed at home. And of course, new family, don't have much money, and so I got a bit of work through my mum, marking assignments and stuff like that. And then we decided to leave the big city and come north to a smaller town, and it was whoever got the first job was going to work and the other person would stay at home. And then a job came up at the local polytechnic in terms of teaching social work on the degree, and I applied for it and got it. So I got the job, and my husband got to stay at home and be a full-time dad.
best job of all.
I know. It was accidental. There was no intent in it at all. And that's where I keep coming back to. The universe puts us where we, there's this saying, atiwa, in terms of when the time's right, everything falls into place. And I should own it. I find when I try and do things that it's not meant to be, there's always going to be things going wrong because the time's not right, it's not meant to be. But when things are meant to be, everything just falls into place and happens really, really smoothly. So again, no intent in getting into education. I fell into it and thoroughly enjoyed it and loved it. Really enjoyed it. I felt I made more of a difference in education, teaching students to be social workers than I ever did as an actual social work on the front line.
Wow.
So it's just enjoyed it. Yeah, fell into it.
And I guess knowing your history and knowing some of the context and stuff, unfortunately, around the same time that you lost your husband, you also lost your job. I mean, how was that for you? Because not only one life-shattering event.
Let's just woo!
Let's go deep.
Yeah, wow.
Because those are both pretty traumatic experiences to go through, and I guess the crux of really why I'm wanting to do this today and share your stories, because you are someone that's been through some very extreme times, and I think your story of resilience is something that just speaks to me in terms of who you are as a person and your outlook on life and everything. You're very resilient and very practical, and I'm just interested. How did that shape you into that? Like, obviously, that's not something that's just going to come to you. Things have triggered you and put you into those places. I'm hearing that, but going through both of those things at once. I mean, how was that for you? And I guess looking back now, what's some of the lessons or the what's some of the bits of the wisdom that you've taken away from the experience, and how has that changed your outlook on life?
First of all, you mentioned the word trauma. I didn't see it as traumatic. I think life's hard, and I think this whole messaging we get a lot about you should be happy and everything's brilliant, everything's magical, and if you're not happy then something's wrong. Am I allowed to swear? Yeah. Okay. It's shit. Is a lie, because I think we are here to learn lessons, because that is part of the human form. It is the chaos and the ups and the downs and the messiness and all of that is about human existence. It's not supposed to be all sparkles and rainbows as much as we want it to be. It's not. Life is life, and I think there's a hell of a lot of other people out there that have been through so much more than I. Mine pales in comparison to other people's stories. I feel quite humbled that you think that, but I've got to disagree. I just don't think. I really don't think that my story is. I think my existence has been quite good. I think I've led a blessed life, and stuff's happened, but stuff does happen. That's life. That is the beautiful chaos that is life. It's messy and it's fun and it's hard but that's the joy of it. That's the so I don't know. It was interesting. My parents were just up on the weekend, and I had a really good chat with my dad when we were walking on the beach, and he said something that I'm like, oh, is that where I get it from? Because he is very, I think we've talked about it, stoic. Things are what they are, and the only thing we can control is our reactions to it. So I can't control you, I can't control what you say or what you do, but I can control the way I react to it. So it's that whole thing of acceptance. And acceptance doesn't necessarily mean, for me, lying down and rolling over. It's just accepting that this has happened, I can't change it, so what am I going to do to work through it?
The response. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I had what I call my pity parties, you know, like you'd have my little moments when I'm like, poor me, my life sucks. But then you blow your nose, you suck up the snot and you get on with it, you know, and it's... But then also having, I mean, I have my kids. That's what got me through. That was my purpose.
Yeah. And on that, how has it been navigating with kids, not just on your own journey, but also being conscious that now it's just you and your two kids trying to do life. Yeah. How was that?
It was.
Yeah.
It just was.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky. I often say my kids are great kids in spite of the parenting they got, not because of it. And they dealt with it in different ways and they had different experiences, but again, that was their journey. And I suppose the important thing for me was just making sure that through it all, they knew that I loved them and that it doesn't matter, like I was always going to be there for them. And like I said at the beginning, my kids are very different kids, man, like, whoa, poles apart, but they're just so amazing in their own space, in their own rights, you know, like they dealt with it because you have to. Yeah. And kids, I actually think kids are more resilient than adults. Kids are so much more resilient than adults. So
why do you think that is?
Social constructivism. So they haven't been socially constructed yet. They've still got, I mean, the older you get, the more constructed you are by societal norms. And of course, every society is different. But you look at a baby or a toddler or whatever, and they're just so open to things, and they're just so, you know, like as an adult, I want to be able to throw a tantrum because they throw a tantrum and then 2 minutes later they're up and going right on again. You know, wouldn't that be a great existence? So I think they haven't been impacted by other people's beliefs and values. I think they're still in their pure forms as kids, and that's why they are resilient, because they realise that life is life and you just work through it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Much more easily mouldable way into their environment and surroundings and what's happened to them. Yeah.
But as adults, we get this is the way you should act. This is the way you should, you know, like I had
to be grieving or whatever.
Absolutely.
That looks like. Yeah.
You know, like I had people saying to me, "Oh, you're dealing with your husband's, you know, passing really, really well. You never cry." And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not going to show you my crying. I do that in my private." Like, and I do remember my my work husband. Love him to bits. So he's a guy I worked with at my job when my husband passed. We got on really, really well. He was just amazing guy. And when I went back to work, I went in a week early and I did what I call my my pity walk, so that people could say what they needed to say, so that when it was time for me to go back to work, I could just go back to work.
Right, just get out, yeah.
So, but that was more about allowing other people the space to be able to do what they thought was right, because I think we have a very strong messages from our society about how you should grieve, and they're very different. Yeah. But also how other people should respond to your grief, you know. But loss is part of life. Loss is part of life. We're all going to lose someone. We're all going to be lost. And it's not just loss through someone passing over, but loss can be, you know, you lose a job, you lose a friend, people move overseas. You know, loss is a constant. And so the more we can deal with it and just accept that this is our journey and our path, yeah. So I think I got a little bit off my dad, because he talked a lot about it is what it is. So he was diagnosed with cancer a little while ago, and he talked about, well, can't change that. Yeah. So you work your way through it. And yeah, I think I've lived a blessed life. I think my life has been totally blessed in comparison to other people. Yeah. So no trauma, no life, yes.
Yeah, sums it up very well.
Yeah. Trauma, no. Life, yes.
I guess for other people potentially going through something similar, or, you know, for future reference in terms of going through something like this, is there advice in terms of how, I know you've pretty much summarised a lot of it there in terms of how you've managed to process it and get through it, and you talked briefly about spirituality and all that sort of stuff there, but I guess is there some advice or some closure or something that you would like to pass on to somebody that's potentially going through loss?
No. I think everyone does it differently, and there's no right or wrong.
I think that's helpful to hear in itself, to be honest.
Yeah, there's definitely no right or wrong. I had a very special woman in my life who I'd worked with for a long time, Mary, and I rang her just after Troy had passed and was talking to her, and she said something to me which really stuck, and I think it was a really good bit of advice. It's like, believing in something doesn't make it real or not, so believe what brings you comfort. Yeah, and that just stuck with me. Like, our beliefs can be different and they don't make something real or not real, but if it brings us comfort, then go with it. Absolutely go with it. There's no right or wrong. Believe what's right for you. Yeah.
And it's, I guess like you're saying, there is no one pathway.
No.
You know, and everything is going to be different.
Yeah.
Off that then, moving forward into where you're at now, and I guess finding love again, or finding who you are, you know, throughout this process. Now you've been through that, and now you're sort of coming out to a new chapter, I guess, or just life as it's going to be. How do you find love again? How do you make yourself receptive enough to put yourself out there, or how do you...
First of all, we're just gonna slam that idea. Because, okay, no, I shouldn't slam that idea. That's not very nice of me. Sorry, I'll take that back. When you say finding love again, what are you talking about?
I guess, is it one of the fears for people when they've lost someone, you know, that they will be alone again? And
so
how do you find comfort in...
you're talking about an intimate relationship?
Potentially.
When you're talking about love, you're talking about
I guess so. I guess it was supposed to be a little bit more open in terms of love. It could be even just loving yourself again. You know, how do you bring peace to yourself? You know, how do you necessarily need somebody else there to fill in that gap that your husband's left, or is it actually something that you can find fulfillment in other areas of life?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just interested to hear that for you.
Okay.
Your own,
For me, and that's really clear. It's for me.
Yeah.
And again, everyone is different, so there is no right or wrong, and really clear on that. So for me, I think one of the best things I did, because I noticed, and I don't know whether it's... my life was my husband's life, so all of our friends were his friends, and that's not a bad thing because his mates were awesome. They're amazing, amazing people, but when he passed, people move on. And so one thing I did, which has been interesting, is I set myself a goal that I would learn something new every year, just one thing a year, and that's been really interesting. So the first year I learned how to ride a motorbike. I tried to learn the guitar, which was an epic fail. I'm obviously not musical. But that doesn't matter because it's not about being good at stuff. It was just about trying new things and learning new things. So I think when you talk about love, love should be everywhere and it should be in everything we do. So that's why I just wanted to clarify. For me, it's not about an intimate relationship. For me, love is about everything I do and every contact I have. So if I do things from a place of love, then that is what brings me peace and acceptance. So I have a little mantra, 4-word mantra, which is love, peace, acceptance and fun. So if I live my life with those 4 things, then I find those 4 things.
Nice.
Because the other thing is we will always find what we're looking for. So if you're looking for badness, you'll always find it. Yeah. If you're looking for goodness, you will always find it because it is... everything is ever present in this world, so we will always find what we're looking for. Yeah. So looking for love, I've already got it. It's how I live my life. How I want to live my life. So in terms of intimate relationship, well, if it happens, it happens. I'm not too, but also my husband's not gone. He's still with me every day. Well, I've got my kids to prove it. I've got, he was the one that brought me here, which is, piece of paradise. He's still with me. But how do I find love? I don't need to find it because it's within me and it's how I live my life. Nice. So if I live my life through love, I find peace, I find acceptance, and you've got to just chuck a little bit of fun in there because that's what it's all about.
Got to have some shits and gigs along the way.
Got to have a bit of a laugh.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, absolutely. yeah.
Nice. All right, I'll go on to more.
On the back of that, though, if anyone wants to read a book, 40 Rules of Love is a really good book to read.
Who's the author of that?
Oh, good question. I want to say Elif Shaklat. So it's about Rumi.
Okay.
It's a story of Rumi.
Alright, I can
I'm probably saying that
include
wrong.
that.
Apologies for a pronunciation.
So I can include in the
Yeah,
in the
40 rules of
description.
love.
40 rules of love.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, going back into being an educator and a tutor, working in the education system currently, I don't know if we've already mentioned that, but we both are. What is your current views of the education system?
Oh,
From one deep topic to another, you know how we roll.
let's just pull that pin on the grenade and drop it there on the table. I don't think there's anything wrong with our system. I have a belief that it's about the people in the system. So anyone can make a system work because a system is just a system. So I think, and I mean, we all have stories about good educators in our lives and not so good educators in our lives. And so no one ever, as an adult or whatever, we don't talk about the system, we talk about the people within the system. So I think we can spend a lot of time, energy and money trying to create a better system, but actually what it comes down to is the people in the system. So if you've got a good educator, it's going to work.
Yeah.
If you've got a not so good educator, it's going to be a struggle. But again, that's life, and it's also about the skills that you learn through the struggle. That's a lesson in itself. That's education in itself, you know, like, so full stop on that question.
Mic drop.
Mic drop, walking away. It's about the people. People, I think the system is a red herring. I think it's it's the system, oh my God. No, it's not. It's the people in the system.
What's the purpose of education?
The purpose of education is learning, constant learning. The love of learning, learning stuff, because that's how we evolve.
For what purpose?
For what purpose? Answer your own question. I don't know. What's the purpose?
I guess
of
in
life?
context of the education that the system that we're currently working in, I know it's about the people,
Yeah.
but what are we ultimately trying to achieve by creating these systems to educate the people? What are we doing, and is there areas where you think we could be improving? And I know what you're saying, it's about the people and we just need more better people, but even when it comes to the stuff that people are being taught, or I guess what is the value add of education if we're trying to sell it to a young person that's currently in school not wanting to attend school? What is the purpose of
I didn't know I
education?
was going to go here. I think we create systems to manage societies, manage populations. So, in my opinion, when we had smaller populations, we didn't need as stronger systems that everybody had to conform to. But as your population grows, you need a mechanism of engagement, I suppose, control engagement, a mechanism of means of engagement. So if everybody has to do that, then we all know what the expectations are, and then therefore we can live side by side. When you have smaller populations, you've got more room to do other things. So I think our education system, because if you look at the whakapapa of where it comes from, years and years ago, the only people that went through school were the people who were going on to university type, stuff. Otherwise, kids ended up working with mum and dad, because that's just, just working with mum and dad. And so school wasn't actually, and you take it even further back, school didn't really exist unless you went to the local monastery school, and the learning actually occurred as, like natural learning, so you were learning how to grow your food, you were learning how to make clothes, you were learning and that was about survival learning. So because that was what you did. But now as populations grow, as technology goes, as we have the Industrial Revolution and things are a lot more easier, we become more specialised in our knowledge. So therefore, those survival things, because the population has grown, our system has grown in order to establish means of engagement. So I think, what's the value of education? The value of education is, one, passion for learning, but it's also learning about how to manage in our society.
Nice. Very succinct.
Not necessarily, but that's what I believe.
Yeah.
So regardless of, and I get it, like my son was ready to leave school, But the way our systems have been set up is he needed to get level 2 if he was going to have opportunities. So it was about creating something that meant that he stayed at school long enough to get his level 2 so that he would have options. Once you got your level 2, son, all good. Go and do you, like whatever. But level 2 gives you an option. Yeah. So suck it up, get your level 2, and then you can go and do what you like. And that is purely about living in the system that our society has created. And that system will constantly evolve as it has over time and will always. So who's to know that, in a couple of generations you have to stay at school till you're 30?
Yeah. Lifelong learning?
A lifelong learning. I don't know. But the purpose of education is, teaching our kids how to engage in our society.
Nice. So there's increasingly a lot of talk around at the moment around, and you're going to love this one. I'll get my tinfoil hat on. Around how socialism ideas and Marxist ideologies are infiltrating the education systems across the world, right? And there's a video I want to show you really quickly, and I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to go quickly to the toilet for a toilet break, and then when I come back, I just want to pick your brain about what you thought about that video and just how we'll go from there. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Please hold caller. Here's some music.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. This is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards.
Okay, so I've just shown you the video of Yuri. What are your thoughts, open, honest thoughts about that video? And I guess, can you see any elements of truth in what he's saying in terms of not just America, but on a worldly scale, in terms of the way our systems are set up or the way that they could potentially be corrupted, as he's sort of discussing in that video?
Okay, so my first question to you is, what is truth?
What is truth?
Yeah. What is truth?
The truth. The truth is what's real.
According to who?
I think there's universal truths that it's like something like.
So give me an example of a universal truth.
Well, what's one that's most recently, I suppose, is a hotly discussed topic is like the whole gender debate thing. There's the universal truth that there's male and female, and that's a genetic, biological truth that you have 2 different genders. What's another truth? The truth is that the sun will always rise and always fall.
Well, no, the sun doesn't rise or fall. It goes around in a circle.
Okay. Where are you going with this?
Well, that's my point. In my mind, there is no truth. There's my truth. There's your truth. There's that person's truth over there. Truth is about perspective.
Yeah.
So we can tell a story about this situation right now, right? So we can both talk about what's happening right now, this conversation. I would put money on the fact that your story is going to be different to my story, but it doesn't mean that either one of them is untrue or true. It's just perspective. So I think...
Yes, but there's things that we can definitely agree on as truth, right?
No. I don't think so.
Well, the sun rising, for example.
Well, the sun doesn't rise. It goes around in a circle.
And it rises from the same spot.
Does it go around in a circle, or does the Earth go around like that? I can't remember which one it is. There's so much going on there, I can't keep up. Moon, sun, Earth, rotating, I don't know.
Reminds me of being back in class
I
right
know,
now.
damn it, I didn't listen. What is it? No, the Earth's flat. It rises and it falls, and then what happens when it's not in our sky? Who knows? So no, I don't agree with you.
Okay.
I think there are universal truths based on what I was talking about before, the means of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So we both agree on a means of engagement. So we might both agree that the sun rises and falls, like just for the sake of argument.
Yeah.
Okay, let's agree with that. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Just because we agree on it doesn't make it true. It means that we agree on it.
Okay.
So I think we get caught we get caught up in all this stuff because it gives us a sense of power, of intrigue, of drama, and I think the human condition is that that's something that feeds us. It feeds our need to be validated. It feeds our need to be part of something. It feeds the human condition. I don't actually think there's truth or non-truth in any of it. I think it's something that we create, and I come back to you can find conspiracy in anything because you're looking for it. You can find non-conspiracy in anything because you're looking for it. So again, it comes back to that point of if you want to put your tinfoil hat on, you go for it, bro. You do it. You put your tinfoil hat on and you have fun with it. That doesn't mean it's true. It means it's true for you, but that doesn't mean it's true. So truth, I think, is about perspective. So when you say to me, so what do you see what this guy's talking about as elements of truth? Yeah. His truth, yes.
Okay. But do you see how potentially do you think it's wrong what he's discussing? In terms of the corruption basically what he's saying is that the education sector has been infiltrated by certain ideologies that in effect will have an impact on the rest of the nation in a few, and what he's saying is 30 years' time, if not less than that, because it will shape society as they grow and as they are listening to these ideologies. Do you think that's wrong?
I don't think it's right or wrong. I just think it is.
Bloody poker face, man.
Well, I think, of course ideology shapes stuff. Every conversation we have with every single person shapes that person's perspective. Yeah. So I go in to buy my petrol, the conversation I have with the person across the counter or the conversation I have with somebody who's walking in beside me is going to impact on their existence. In a good way or a not good, like...
Keep going.
It's going to shape it. So, of course, ideologies shape things. But is there a right or a wrong in it? There's my right and there's my wrong. So there might be something being taught in our education system that doesn't sit right for me, but it sits right for somebody else. Who's to say that it's better or worse? So I think part of what I like to try and do with my kids, because it's my truth, is get my kids to sort of say, well, what's the perspective in here? So this person thinks this person thinks this person thinks this. What do I think and where do I sit on it? So do ideologies exist? Of course they do. Are they right or wrong? It's not for me to say. I know what's right for me. Yeah. I know what's wrong for me. But I think we can spend an awful lot of time and energy pointing the finger at all these people that are trying to change us and, oh, don't try and change me, and, oh, look at that person. What are we doing in terms of, and I come back to my earlier point, what are we doing to live our lives from a place of love? That's, so, yeah, I'll make my little tinfoil hat and I'll put my tinfoil hat on. Yeah. Look at me wearing my tinfoil hat. There is no truth because truth is about perspective. I have my truth, you have your truth, and all these other people have their truth, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong because it's theirs. Yeah. So as long as for me, it's also about control base. So what can I control and what can't I control? So I can have opinions about things, I can have perspectives on things. What can I control? I can control the way that I interact with people in my life. I can control the way I vote or not vote or whatever that may be. That's the stuff I can control. Yeah. But sitting on my couch pointing at people going, oh my God, that person's, what a waste of my energy, is the way I view it.
I guess, I can hear that.
Come on, convert me.
Well, if everyone fought like that, then...
Oh my God, imagine a world where everybody... came from a place of love.
No, it's,
Stop it!
well,
no,
yeah,
we
well,
don't
coming
want
of love
that.
is always a good. I think that's where we should all come from. But I guess if there's no one to stand up against,
You can stand up from a place of love.
yeah. But if you're,
Yeah, I disagree with your truth, Karen. Please tell me more.
I guess my point is if you could see wrong being done, it's the same
Wrong
as
from
if
my
you if
perspective.
you're walking past a crime being done, and you just carry on walking.
I'm not saying that.
Okay, well, is it not a crime then to be?
Sorry.
Is it not a crime to be essentially brainwashing people to think a certain ideology and
Who
to?
says your ideology is better than somebody else's?
Well, that's what I'm saying. To put on ideologies onto somebody.
Okay, so I'll flick that back on you. Bounce. Who's to say, what do you think the world would be like if we didn't share any ideologies? Because it's not right for me to put my ideology on you, so therefore I'm not going to share anything, and therefore you're just going to sit in an existence where you don't actually have any ideologies at all put on you at any stage in your life.
It'd be a very sheltered life.
Well, it wouldn't even be sheltered, it wouldn't exist, because our whole world is made up from ideologies.
Yeah.
Our whole world is made up from perspectives. And because of the human condition, we share those perspectives, and we can either choose to take that on or choose not to. You can't, the world cannot exist without ideologies.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, do you want me to?
No, it's okay. Give me a cuddle with Freya. I guess, yeah. I hear what you're saying, but I
You
guess
don't agree
I'm
with
just.
me?
Well, I guess there's a hint of.
Oh, coming back to your point about, so if I was walking down the road and somebody was beating somebody up, you're saying that I would carry on walking.
No, but I guess that's in my head. That's what I'm saying. We could just keep on just ignoring things that's going
not
on
saying
around us
ignore
and
it.
being ignorant. But when do we stand up? When do you get to the point then where things are actually? I mean, we're seeing examples now of pretty extreme activism in our own country. I mean, look at Te Papa, for example. And a lot of that is the ideologies that are coming through our universities at the moment. You know, it's prevalent. It's the ideologies of equity and...
So I would challenge, you say at the moment, that has been the underpinning of university education since day dot. There's always been protests and stuff because that is the challenge of the evolution of knowledge comes through that system. So therefore, students are always looking for that change in ideology to the challenge to the status quo because that's the evolution of knowledge. And you take it right back to like Greek times when they were actually looking at what we would potentially call university type education. Yeah. They were challenging the Senate, they were challenging things because that's the role of the student in terms of the evolution of knowledge. So I don't think it's a new thing at all. I think it's been ever present.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the recent activism that's been taking place though.
That's normal. Yeah. I mean, you take it back to the 1970s with the, the evolution of the te reo movement. That started in universities. That was Peter Sharples and his crew who were actually university students standing up against other university students who were doing a haka, and they were saying, hey, nah, that's not okay, you can't do that. And that movement started from there. So that started at university. So there's always been what others perceive as radical movements occurring. And so, but now we're in this generation, we look at te reo, for example, and it's not a revolutionary movement anymore because of the work that those people did back then, so, and that's that evolution of knowledge and understanding. And you don't necessarily have to agree with it. It doesn't have to align with your truth, but it aligns with somebody else's truth.
Good answer.
Damn it, he says, why can't I go?
No, I appreciate it. I get it. And I guess it is good to hear that extra context. I guess it's just curious to me that a lot of the stuff, it's all around universities.
Always has been.
Yeah. Well, I guess with going back to the earlier point of what's the purpose of education, and I didn't realise getting education meant being a social activist.
Well, yes, because it's the evolution of knowledge. So, I mean, in theory, education is at the precipice of every new learning because they do research, they're constantly uncovering new things, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So therefore, of course, new ideas are always going to come from that sector. Not to say they don't come from other sectors, because they absolutely do. But when you look at the kaupapa of education is about the evolution of knowledge, the research that goes behind that. I mean, you look at when you're a student, what were some of the papers you did affecting social change? That was one of the papers you did, which was about the evolution of knowledge. It was about social change. It was about, so what can you do as an individual, as a social worker, as a member of community to affect positive social change? That's the constant that exists. And whether how you choose to engage with that. And social change doesn't have to be this massive, like, oh my God. It can be as simple as, okay, using that scenario of the gas station. I go into a gas station, get gas every day. The social change that I can implement is the fact that I bring joy or a smile to that person's face. There's social change in action. So it doesn't have to be something massive. And I think where I work from, it's about looking at what can we do to make our worlds a better place. And so it's not about not standing up, not protesting. If that's your jam, that's your jam. Awesome, go for it. I'm not saying it's wrong. But I'm also challenging in my mind, for me, social change is about those individual connections that I can have that will then trickle down, you know, like the little stone in the pond effect. If I make you feel better, then you're going to go home and probably be better with your family, who will then be better with their mates, who will then be, you know, that's the social change that you can affect from an individual level.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's right, I'm saying that's right for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So ideologies, yes, they exist, of course they do, because that's the evolution of knowledge. But we also have free will, so we also have the ability to decide which one we want to sit with and which one we don't. And we know from our conversations that sometimes we sit on the opposite side and we like to debate and argue it.
It's more fun that way.
I know, right?
Talking of social work then, do you feel like social work today has become a commodity? And when I say that, I mean, I'm thinking of the amount of funding that goes into social services in today's age. We've got a lot of money going into homeless work, you know, helping people with homeless shelters, you know, open kai services, all that sort of stuff. And in your experience as a social worker for how many years now, do you feel like social work as a profession itself has changed to the point where actually it's become a commodity? It's become a career place, just a place to go and get paid, and, you know, it's lost the heart and soul of actually what social work was all supposed to be about.
So what's the question?
Do you feel like social work has become a commodity in today's age?
No, I think social work has evolved to where society sits. So our society is based on resources, those that have and those that do not have. That's always been inherent in social work in terms of the haves and the have-nots and the power base that sits with the resource commodities, etc., etc. So I think social work is just evolving with that societal ideation of the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
So in order to do something, you need to have. If you have not, then you can't do anything. And again, there's no right or wrong in it. I think that's just where it's ended up.
Do you feel like our mental health, in terms of mental health in the country, you know, stats are saying like you.
Why do I feel you're trying to set me up?
I'm not trying to set you up. I'm just curious because
Yep,
you know this stuff. This is your day in, day out.
No,
you know,
I don't
and
know it.
you spent a whole career in it. I guess it's be interesting is, you know, your perspective on mental health today. And you know, we're in a mental health crisis. We're hearing it all the time. We're seeing young people, you know, drastically, you know. Mental distress among young youth has increased significantly over the last decade. At around 21% of adolescent boys and girls aged 10 to 19 live with a mental health disorder. You know, and it just seems to be on the rise. We're seeing a lot of stuff around suicides. It's been going on for years now. Why do you think that is? And how can we as a society make a difference in that space and actually make a genuine impact for people?
Okay, I do feel like this is a setup because you know my opinions on this.
I think they're valid opinions though, and I think it'd be helpful for other people to hear it.
And again, I want to emphasise that this is my perspective and my perspective only, and I understand that there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this. And I get that, absolutely, 100%. And coming back to there is no right and wrong, there's your right, my right, etc., etc. But I don't necessarily... Mental health has been ever present. It always has. We've dealt with it in different ways as knowledge has evolved. We deal with things in different ways each generation. So I suppose my first question that comes when you read out stats to me is that an existence or is that a diagnosis? So maybe those things have always been there, but we just haven't labelled them. And now with the move towards awareness and acceptance and I suppose normalisation of it, there's a lot more people that feel more comfortable to come forward and get a diagnosis. So my first question around it though is, what does a diagnosis give people? If a diagnosis enables you to do something that you couldn't do without a diagnosis, then catch by, that's all good. Like, if it helps, that's cool. But I do think that, I think it's more about increase in diagnosis than an actual increase in issues. I think, like you talk about young people, that time of life is always fraught with a lot of stuff because that's a time of life when people are figuring stuff out, figuring out where they fit, figuring out who they are, all of that. So there's a lot of figuring stuff out, and so there's ups and downs and all of that going on, and then you've got your physical changes as well as. So it's a pretty intense time of life. Just because we have an increase in diagnosis doesn't necessarily, I think, believe there's an increase in issues. I think there's an increase in openness about talking about the issues. But I think it also comes back to that very early on in our conversation about people are sold the idea that life is supposed to be all happy, and if you're not happy, there's something wrong. Well, actually, no, if you're not happy, then it's just life. Goods and bads and all of that. So I think it's about working with people and parents and teachers and all those people who have significant influence on young people about the navigation of life, not about, oh, you've got depression, therefore take a pill. And that's my personal view, and I understand that medication works really, really well for some people, and it definitely has its place. But I think it's a very easy fix, whereas if you develop the abilities to navigate the ups and downs, you're going to set yourself up a lot better rather than taking a pill and expecting that will always... It's like when you're training, for a sports team or whatever, not that I'm particularly sports-minded, but, if I was going to run a marathon, I don't just wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to run a marathon today. I train for it. So at what point do we train our minds to be able to deal with stuff like mental illness? At what point? And it's not just that decision of, oh, I'm going to be mentally well from now on. You've got to, it's that training. It's like when you're training for a marathon, you have good runs and you have bad runs. And building that up. So it's the same with our mental health. We've got to train our minds, our emotions, develop strategies to be able to, and understand that that's an up and down process. Just like when we're training our bodies, we need to train our minds. So I don't necessarily think there is a crisis. I think that's been ever present. I just think we're talking about it more.
Nice. Yeah.
And I realise that could raise a lot of eyebrows for some people, and I acknowledge that my thinking is just my thinking, and it's not necessarily right for everyone, and that's cool. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that they're right, I'm just saying that this is my perspective.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of truth, to use
Your
that
truth?
word again, and what you're saying though, because it has much more of a raised profile these days. We talk about it much more openly now, even with men, in terms of like soften up and all that sort of stuff and stop being so hard and all that sort of stuff. I feel like it is becoming much more of a normal part of our day-to-day lives, talking about our mental health and our emotional health and stuff, which I feel like is good. But I'm also hearing as well, it's only as good as the way we think about it and the way that we sort of, like you're saying, train our own resilience, our own way to cope with life and all its complexities. And I feel like there's an element of truth, sorry to use that word again, what you're saying there, because it is. I feel the same way.
But it's also asking ourselves that question about, what does this diagnosis give me? If I get diagnosed with something, you can get diagnosed with... It's very easy to get a diagnosis.
To label yourself as...
So what does that label give you?
Yeah.
Does it actually help you? Does it hinder you? So what is the purpose of getting that diagnosis is probably something that I would always ask.
Nice. Oh, final question.
Oh, thank God.
Thank you for doing this again.
No, just, whoa.
What does the purpose of life mean to you?
The purpose of life. The purpose of life is to live. And that comes from my mate Mary that I talked about earlier on. I mean, I asked her that very question and she said the purpose of life is to live. That's it.
Nice.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah. All right. On that note, we'll end it there. Thank you again. Really appreciate this. Got a lot out of it.
You're welcome.
And we'll, leave it there.